I'm Steve Levy, and there'll be a little something about me at the very end. But I want to talk about the TA headache problem. We have a headache in TA that can't be cured by an espresso, a peppermint mocha, or a new ATS. It's the social media thoughtfluencer who was part motivational poster, part affiliate link, and wholly unburdened by evidence. We see them every day. So what I'd like to do, ask everybody here as I go through my deck and talk about things, if you can think of some of the most ludicrous, audacious, outlandish stuff that TA practitioners, TA experts, TA thought leaders have been throwing in, and to your social media feeds, I'd greatly appreciate that. But here's the problem: these people, their job is not to improve hiring. Their job is to dominate your feed, and a feed whose algorithm is determined in some mystical ways by some blue-looking fellow that often is pushing things into our feed 3, 4 weeks after they happen. We kind of scratch our heads. But these people are winning because we keep rewarding performance theater over operating results. They're not evil. They're very well-meaning. I really do believe they're well-meaning. I don't believe they're evil people who put this stuff out there. The problem is incentives. Platforms pay in dopamine and reach. Dopamine, reach, impressions, not invalidated hires, hiring velocity, quality of slate, reduce offer, drop off, or things like that. The challenge here is that influencers crave applause, while practitioners like us, we crave process improvement. So do you want to guess which one is going to keep the business alive? So we have here a thought influencer epidemic in TA that I'm going to talk about over the next 15 or so minutes. If I can get this. Hello, mouse. There you go. Then we're going to talk about four things. This is the classic recruiting influencer. Recruiting is broken because I said so. That's what we're pretty much seeing out there. So a couple of things we're going to talk about. Why do we fall for these thought charlatan influencers? Is there a taxonomy? Yes, there's a taxonomy. I think there are 5 categories of these people. I'm going to offer a BS detection kit and how to actually consume this stuff without pain. The overarching element here that I'd like people to embrace, it's about being a data skeptic. And the other subtitle here is, if you've ever done master's work or PhD work in industrial psychology or something like that, you're going to learn about internal validity, external validity, construct validity, and statistical conclusion validity. This is a TA approved course in graduate level research design methodology, just so you know. Anyway, so why do we fall for these TA thought leaders? And I'm not talking about Fink. I'm not talking about Mrs. Miller. You know who I'm talking about, because those are the ones that Amy jumps on, and I get these message pings. Oh, Amy's on fire right now. You better jump in and see what she's doing. But there are 4 reasons why we trust people who say, "Really, you can trust me." By the way, all these images were prompt generated, so I didn't have to go very far to get an influencer type here. Anyway, so the 4 things are brain chemistry, social physics, cognitive traps, and platform design. I want to touch upon each one really briefly. When it comes to brain chemistry, I'm almost like being a psychologist here, because the real virus here is not the misinformation, but how we process the information. So when it comes to brain chemistry, particularly for job seekers, job search is really like ambiguity soup. We know this. We know that there are so many different ways to do this. But if you haven't been involved in it for as long as we have, as in depth as we have, imagine you're a job seeker. I mean, this is, our brains trade accuracy for certainty when stress is high. So that's one element with the brain chemistry. The other thing is I call it fluency heuristics, and slick, simple, repeatable rules are easier to process than messy reality. Third thing is that it's kind of like a variable reward loop. You apply tip, sometimes get a response, you get a dopamine spritz. Does anyone remember, partial reinforcement effect, Pavlov's dog, meat powder, press the lever, meat powder, drool, all that other stuff? That's all it is. This is dope. This is like Pavlovian conditioning in operation. And finally, we're sort of we have an action bias. Doing something, anything, feels better than just tolerating uncertainty. Sometimes movement masquerades as progress. When it comes to social physics, it really is, particularly when it comes to influencers, is something called authority bias. Follower counts, blue checks, as seen in logos, they simulate expertise. And we make the mistake of confusing these status signals for skill signals. It's classic FOMO. You see someone with 100,000 likes, and it tells your brain, well, this works for everybody else. I'd be an outlier if I didn't try it or didn't believe it. Fear of being the only chump it's a powerful motivator for some. Daily posts, and again, I'm not talking about Finks, and there are others I know. Emily Muckin does a really good job, and if anyone, I'm gonna escape on that. The people like David Marr who continuously, Christina, she doesn't want to give me her last. I don't give her last name. They're sharing jobs, doing great things for the community. It feels like a friendship. And so when someone's in your feed on a daily basis, it feels like family, and familiarity breeds credibility. Identity signaling is another aspect of social physics where sharing a hot take says, for someone who doesn't, I'm the kind of professional that hustles. That means I literally have to put these glasses on for that one. Like I'm giving you a hot take. You better listen to me. Yeah, right. And the other one is a really good juicy story. And there are some people on these platforms that are really good writers, and they reel you in, and you're engaged, and you're motivated, and it just hijacks the skepticism that you think you should have. Then when it comes to like cognitive traps, look, bottom line is a triumphant anecdote absolutely hides the denominator of what's actually happening. Dun, 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 this worked. Job seekers overweigh the vivid, I landed fang with this message, and underweight the 3,000 ignored messages. They see that one thing. Something I call the Dunning-Kruger effect meets learned helplessness. And newer job seekers don't know what they don't know. Newer people in our profession don't know what they don't know. We don't do a particularly good job of recruiter enablement. A hat tip to Adam Gordon of Poetry HR. Burned out job seekers. Hi, Amy. I see you. Okay. Burned out job seekers feel nothing matters, and both are primed for silver bullets. When you see something like a 3 steps, it scratches that itch for an endpoint. Real hiring is iterative, probabilistic, and very bad for viral posts. It sometimes takes a long time. There are no 3 steps to land a job with Kipper, with Amy Miller as a recruiting manager. It just doesn't exist. Platform design is the easiest thing to do. I'm going to call it out. Being on LinkedIn reminds me of being in Las Vegas in a slot machine, and it's the feeds, they amplify content that's certain, short, emotional, and frequent. It's an absolute bias towards charlatans by default. It keeps you in and keeps you there, and that's the whole thing. As somebody once said, I think it was Dan Reed over at LinkedIn. He said, LinkedIn is not a recruiting platform. It's a relationship platform. Yeah, it's a relationship with a dysfunctional family that just keeps you there forever and ever. Anyway, So what do we have next? Oopsie. So who are these thought influencers? I'm going to read them. We have five of them. We have the Vibe ventriloquist. This is the person who lives on authenticity but defines absolutely none of it. No, Brian, it's not you, baby. It's not you, baby. Although you say vibe a lot in our morning text messages, it's not you, baby. Don't worry. But they cite vibes as if they're peer reviewed. And the cool, funny thing is, and this is not scientific. This is me just being funny. They offer frameworks and pictures shaped like hexagons because hexagons look really serious. Now we have the metric magician. Who is the metric magician? Well, they'll screenshot a dashboard, they'll declare victory, but they never show the pre and post baseline or talk about confounders. You don't know where it came from. They just say, this is what it is. I win. They love metrics like cost per hire and time to hire because they're easy to game and they're very difficult to correlate with business impact. Ah, the playbook pirate. By the way, I hope you like my color scheme on this one. I didn't think really hard on this one. I just took what was default. This is where, if for anybody who's had their work hijacked, I know Jan, if you're on from Eastern Europe, you get scooped all the time. These are the kind of people they scrape a vendor white paper or someone else's work, and they'll rebrand it as my 9-step method, and then add a lighthouse emoji and a DM me for the template to their post. Bastards. Now we have more and more these days the AI whisperer. Who loves you, baby Pam? The AI whisperer talks about agents like they're replacing recruiters next Tuesday. We've been hearing that now for several years now. Still waiting. But the AI whisperer has never shipped a model in production or audited a drift, but tosses around phrases like transformational inflection as if they're quoting the gospel. And finally, we have the culture bard. I'm going to call out the noon mentality at stuff like that. I've noticed that they're getting fewer and fewer impressions. I wonder why. They share moral certainties about inclusion and then hire from the same three schools. They say talent is everywhere and proves it by hiring nowhere new. Really? So, how do you detect the stench and protect yourself from it? Well, as you become a better consumer and become a data skeptic, people are, these charlatans are going to start saying, no, really, I'm telling you the truth, but you know better that it's bull poop. It simply is. And so here's the BS detection kit, and it's receipts or it didn't happen, replicability requirement, causality over correlation, counterfactual check, methodology section, move on. What it means is the following. If there's a claim like we cut time to fill by 42%, ask for the before and after, the population size and the exclusions, essentially the research design, the survey methodology, the collection methodology. If they can't show the denominator, you're being sold a numerator. Replicability requirement means if the playbook won't survive in a different market, job, family, or hiring manager temperament, it's a case study. It's not a strategy. Causality over correlation, very serious statistical conversation here at a later date. But did this new sourcing tool help or did comp finally cross the market median? If compensation changed, the experiment is contaminated. It's things like that. You want to look for confounding variables, confounding things that might have been out of your control and not part of the study. Counterfactual check means what would have happened if we had done nothing? Would we have seen the same impact? Would it simply have been a seasonality issue? Don't know. And finally, real operators include sample sizes, confidence intervals, and the ugly edge cases that broke the model. We talk about that. That's what peer review means. So, how do you consume without pain? There are 10 things here and I'm going to run through them very, relatively quickly. I'm doing well on time here, but rather than to talk about them, by saying, adopting, using base rates, it means before trying any trick that somebody throws at you, ask, what is a typical response rate from my profile, my function, and market? Compare the deltas, not screenshots. When someone gives you something to try, A/B test it, try it, compare it to, get some sort of baseline internally so you have something to measure it against. Yeah, that's it, Brian. Did the trick work? Or is it a trick? Second thing is you can't control algorithms. You simply can't. You can control target lists. You control the outreach, the signal-rich outreach you use, your proof of work artifacts and follow-up cadence. That you can control. Um, the rituals that we do. 5 specific referrals sought, 2 portfolio artifacts improved, 3 intros requested, 10 quality outreaches, rituals that are consistent and logical beat these hacks that spike and leave you empty and famished. Consistency is what wins the game. Recruiting is it's a long game. And sometimes, the saying, you can't boil the ocean, you can't eat a buffet at once. You have to do it one bite at a time. That's what this means. Um, Track applications, screens, on-sites, offers, add notes on why each step moved, add details. I know that the systems that we use don't make it easy to put in the data, to put in our notes, to put in our thoughts. But over the long term, that is what's going to win the game. Um, Follow those who publish methods, not just headlines, sample size, time window, confounders, what failed. Unfollow these dopamine leaders. The Bryans and the Amys and the others. They give you stuff and they talk about why it worked and why it didn't work. Follow those people. As I say, upgrade your diet. That's what that's about. Next one's here. Curate, mute. I say it, mute generously, curate ruthlessly. Um, if anybody here is old enough to remember Cheech and Chong and the old Chabornik routine, um, if it looks like dog shit, feels like dog shit, smells like dog shit, tastes like dog shit, it's dog shit. You got to be that way. Not up in smoke, Finky. This was before your time. Um, Always ask for the denominator. Any post with a percentage but no base population gets treated as fiction until proven otherwise. Share posts where somebody shows what didn't work. Failure is data. Failure is learning. Anything that's omitted is just theater. Um, Prioritize substance over slides. What I mean there is carousels. The ground, they're just thin layers. Find the boring blog where someone details their instrumentation and 3 ways are broke. Glenn Cathy is fabulous at this. He'll give you all the nerdy details because that's who he is. It resonates with me. He gets into the muck. He gets into those nuances that people don't think about, but they're important because they tell the whole story. And finally, treat every tactic as as an hypothesis with a small A/B test. 20 messages with A, 20 messages with B. Measure reply rates, not vibes. So, in a nutshell, be skeptical, be inquisitive,